All right, now back to our story about mining activities causing an uproar in Nasarawa State. Well, joining us is Edosa Oviawe, who is a program manager at NGO Global Rights Nigeria.
Edosa, thank you for joining us on Newsnight.
Thank you.
I'm happy you've been to Nasarawa State to see the situation yourself. And you've been on this case for quite a while. Speak to us about your involvement so far with the host community.
Okay, thank you. I think one thing we are not paying attention to, which is what we have been drawing our attention to, is even the whole concept of what even constitutes illegal mining in Nigeria, in the Nigerian context. Because a lot of people just think, okay, when you don't have a license, that is illegal mining. Some of these companies have license, but what kind of title do they hold? Because what some of them do is they just go to these communities and brandish a kind of title or license to them to say we got government papers to mine, and then they start mining. Meanwhile, the license they have is perhaps for exploration or for even reconnaissance, but they go on and start engaging in extraction.
Right.
And some even have license because of the environmental impact assessment they've done. They have license perhaps to mine limestones, but then they delve into other kind of minerals. And which was not reflected in the environmental impact assessment they've done. And so in that way, they're not able to curtail whatever negative impacts of those mining activities. And so the Nasarawa case has been a bit not so different from what we have across some other states, like what we have in Zamfara and the other states today, because certain officials that are saddled with that responsibility of monitoring what these title holders are doing are not doing what they're supposed to do. That's on one case. And then the government has set up what they call, the law set up what they call the MIRENCO, Minerals, Resources and Environmental Management Committee. But how many states is it functioning? And this MIRENCO is supposed to be the one doing that close monitoring of what every title holder, every mineral title holder is doing in the states, and following up to see how they are utilizing those titles they've gotten, and seeing whatever environmental impacts and how they are containing those impacts. But many of the states to date still have not set up that committee.
So let's even talk about environmental impact assessment. So what have you been finding out so far in your work, whether it's in Nasarawa State or in Zamfara, in other places? And in the same breath, I'd like you to help us establish whether there is a nexus between illegal mining or mining generally and the state of insecurity that you find in parts of the country.
Oh yeah, I think Zamfara is even a classical case when it talks about mining and insecurity, or how illegal mining is fueling insecurity in the country. Zamfara is a case, Niger is a case, and that is why we have been shouting for quite some time about Nasarawa. Don't let us get to that point where we are in Zamfara or in part of Niger. Can we do the right thing so we don't get to that point? Because if you look at those parts of Zamfara where those illegal gold mining is going on, who are those people mining the gold there? And how are those gold taken out of the state? You see them come with, Zamfara is not supposed to have an operational or a functional airport.
To start with, but it does have one.
The plane comes in with arms, take away gold, raw gold, and come back. Go to Zamfara, go to this community, you see things. You see. There
was a no-fly order
in
Zamfara.
No, there was.
There is. Still in place, right?
Plane still comes in, and then raw gold still leaves the state.
So the political will to do the right thing might be the challenge here.
It goes beyond political will.
Right.
The thing is even the issue of beneficial ownership. Who are the ones benefiting from this who mess up we're talking about?
I was coming there because you heard the governor talking about traditional rulers and other people at the grassroots. Now, when he said that, I knew that it was a big deal, because the moment the grassroots involvement is compromised, that's a big issue. Now, what suggestions do you have? Because it was really sounding helpless. I just didn't want to go that way.
I understand this. I understood this frustration.
It's in a very difficult situation, to be honest. The governor is in a very difficult situation. So what about, hang on a minute. So what do you suggest in having a synergy between the federal government, the state government, and the grassroots leaders?
Okay, that was where I was coming to. When I understood the governor's frustration is because, of course, we know the minerals extraction is strictly under the exclusive legislative list. And so once the minerals or solid mineral, whatever minerals is found on that land, it becomes the federal government land, no longer under the state. And so whatever happens with the mining, the license, or the withdrawal of the license, or whatever happens, is strictly the federal government prerogative. So what the states could do is what the governor had done that last year, December, when they passed the executive order, is to say before you get the final license, you're supposed to have got the consent from the community. Right. So before you do that, there are certain things you have to do. The state government want to be part of it to see how you are negotiating with these communities. That is the best the state could do, and which is what the governor did last year. But then, what happens after you get the license? What happens when you start degrading the land? Go to Nasarawa, farmlands has become pit holes. You go there and see, go with your cameras and see, it has become pit holes. And then you see stagnated ponds here and there. Not natural ponds, but ponds that have come out of, because they have not done what they call the reclamation. They just finish mining, leave that point, look for another place.
So what's the way out of this vicious cycle, really?
First, we must get
I
think first we must get our law to work. And then getting the law to work, we must get Mirenko to work. I have said that to many state governors several times, but the challenge is because of the way the law is set up, the federal government appoints the chairman of Mirenko, but Mirenko is supposed to be funded by the state government.
Mirenko is what again, just for
Mineral Resource and Environmental Management Committee.
Great.
So the law has established Mirenko, but the chairman of Mirenko, who chairs the committee, is appointed by the federal government, but the state government is expected to fund the activities of Mirenko. You see where the gap is. And so many of the state governors will say, why should I fund an intervention when I'm not in control?
Right.
And so while federal government is trying to do something good, to say, okay, states, see how you have a committee that monitors how these mining activities are going on. But at the same time, they don't want to let go of certain responsibility or powers.
Are you able to come up with figures in terms of naira and kobo, of dollars, if you like, of what it's costing Nigeria, illegal mining? And there's been talk, again, just to add to that the lithium mining or the mining issue in Nasarawa State, and is actually beyond lithium. I wonder if you have
Nasarawa State
more to tell us about that.
presently has about 20 minerals.
Right.
They have 20 minerals. Not all of them are presently being extracted, but they have a minimum of 20 minerals, about 21 or so.
In commercial quantity.
That's Nasarawa State alone. And so it's not just about lithium. That just become, and that brings us to what we are not thinking about. That issue of lithium is because of the way the world is moving towards energy transition. And we are not thinking about that right now. Right now, Nigeria is not prepared for energy transition. We are still so much on oil and gas, but it's inevitable. It will happen. We will all get there. It's just about shifting from oil and gas to solid minerals. If we are not curtailing this at this point, what happens when we transit?
Right.
So when the pressure is now solely on minerals, now the pressure is not there, and we're having to face all of this. It means what we experience in minerals will be worse than what we have in the Niger Delta region.
Oh my. No, what is costing Nigeria? I mean, in terms of, yes, please,
NATI do release annual reports every year in terms of the cost of solid minerals. And I think the last report, NATI report, last NATI report, if I can recall, I think it's about, is it $90 billion they mentioned?
$90 billion
or $30 billion. I can't remember the figure, but it's $1 billion that Nigeria loses annually due to illegal mining activities, which is just in terms of the loopholes and the gaps, because we are not able to manage our extractive sector very well.
Edosa, you've raised my curiosity tonight a lot, and I'm more interested in energy transition. But then we're pressed for time. Can you do that in 30 seconds or less?
Okay, I think what I would say is, let's begin to think about, do we want a repeat of Niger Delta case in Nigeria, because oil and gas is just like any other type of mineral, is across the whole country.
All across the country. Edosa Oviawe is Program Manager, Global Rights Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us and shedding more light on this.